Welcome to Leaders in the Arena. My name is Jenny Whitener, CEO of Bridge Innovate, and we are a global network of business strategists, consultants, and designers that team with you to spark distinctive change and transformation for your organization. This podcast is designed to share valuable insights and lessons from our network and client base to support your own personal leadership journey. According to research from McKinsey & Company, implementing an agile transformation capability may improve operational performance metrics from 30 to 50%. We at Bridge Innovate had the opportunity to work along Shaw Industries to tackle improving agile transformation and speed. In fact, we were able to work with Shaw Industries to develop a speed and agility sprint methodology for their pulse survey, taking it from the charter stage to pilot in just 49 days. Today, I'm excited to have a very special guest with us and good friend, Torrance Ford, who serves as the Vice President of Information Technology at Shaw Industries and was responsible also for the HR technology and leading the Technology Management Office for Shaw Industries. Previously at Shaw, he served as the Vice President of Talent Management, and it was during this time that Torrance and I had the opportunity to work together to tackle this concept of agile transformation with speed and agility. And we are honored to have him with us today for Leaders in the Arena. Thank you, Torrance, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jenny. Excited to have the conversation with you today.
It's great. When we were getting ready for our discussion today, I was making the comment that it seems that you're always in the middle of some major transformation and leading it, like it just follows you around. So one of the big questions I wanted to start off with today is for you to share from your perspective, how do you go about leading major transformational change initiatives at large scale enterprises? Tell me about that.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's just really important to understand where the organization is trying to go and have a sense of where opportunities are, being networked and connected, both in the function that you work in, but also outside and having diverse connections inside and outside the company, like Bridge Innovate, and
Mhm.
putting yourself just in a position to have a pulse. And when those opportunities show, just being able to offer, your skills and abilities to be part of solving the problem along with others.
Yeah, I remember the times when we were first starting this discussion, and when I think about your leadership, you were always so, um, I guess, insightful. You tackled the challenges of leading large scale change in a very methodical way. You gathered input, you talked to people, you analyzed the problem, and it didn't seem to to shock you in any way. You're always so calm and appearing so confident. So many times I work with leaders and leading massive, large organizational change, and it's very frightening. And you've been in the middle of it for major changes at Shaw. How were you able to lead these things successfully? What were the enablers for large scale enterprise-wide change?
Well, the first thing I'll say is sometimes you have to be like a duck. You're calm above water, but you're paddling pretty furiously below water.
Right.
So I'm glad I came off as calm. uh, but really, it's just one of those things that over the course of a career, as you have different experiences, uh, you come to anticipate that there will be challenges, and that's part of the fun, and you have to embrace the opportunity and just work through it. And
Yeah.
so earlier in career, you probably saw a different Torrance, but as I got experiences and opportunities, I was able to just expect those challenges and really work with those around me to work through them.
Yeah. Well, it's been great working with you on many projects and to see your leadership in action around these large scale change initiatives. Talk to the group, I know the folks listening in today, around the catalyst for when we first started working together around accelerating change at Shaw. What was the catalyst for this project that you and I are working on together?
One of the groups that I was one of the co-leaders on at Shaw is called the Accelerating Change Team, or the ACT team. And as I said earlier in the opening, is that sometimes being in proximity of others and having a pulse of the organization creates opportunity. And as part of the Accelerating Change Team, in our name, we recognized we were going through tremendous change at Shaw, and some changes were taking a long time just to get out of the blocks and into action to benefit the organization. So this group took on a task of trying to help identify those areas of opportunity when it came to moving with speed and agility. So we came together as a group. We really explored and brainstormed around all those forces that was acting on us as a company and as associates at the company. And we came away with three key areas that we wanted to focus on: empowerment and accountability, um, prioritization, and trust and accountability. And so really, there were other areas, but of the 9 areas that we really hold the group on, those were the three that rose to the top.
Right. I think that, I remember that conversation well when you said, I have some data. We've been analyzing what might be getting in the way of us to having speed around the area of change, what's affecting our ability to accelerate change. And while these are critical components of great teaming, empowerment, accountability, prioritization, I think the big mystery for a lot of leadership teams are, how do you mobilize that? So we understand the concept, but how do you empower teams? How do you, ensure that they have the resources necessary to execute? And so um, I really appreciated it when you came to me and you called me up one day and you said, Jenny, we've got this data and we really want to accelerate change at Shaw. I'd like for you to come back to me with some ideas on how to do that. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you. It was a great challenge. And secondly, we've had a great time developing what we call the speed and agility sprint methodology. But the first thing we did to create that methodology was do some research, right? We looked at a number of different inspirational areas that to kind of learn what some of the best practices were in the marketplace. And there was a case study that we looked at coming from Steelcase, where they had put together a SWOT team, a strategic workforce architecture transformation team, a SWOT team where they tackled emerging trends and needs and using kind of a real-time experimentation approach to launch solutions in a very fast and rapid process using kind of a project-based team. We also found this great case study from McKinsey on Procter and Gamble, where they had identified this concept of a faster learner culture wins, highlighting the shift from kind of win, pass, fail to a culture of learn and pivot, that the organizations that could do that could really accelerate change by adopting this learn and pivot culture. And then we looked at things that are just around speed, right? We went to NASCAR and we looked at and we studied, how has the pit crew experience evolved at NASCAR? And so if you think about the 1950s, when the fastest pit crew experience was around 67 seconds. And when you think about it today in 2024, pit crews are performing in 8.5 seconds, completely servicing an entire race car. That's amazing. And so the lessons learned from very, focused skill sets, very enabling technology, the aspects of, training for that speed and understanding my role and responsibility. And then, of course, Bridge had led design sprints for many years using some of the best practices from IDEO and Google Sprint. So I remember the day that when you came back to me and I said, well, I have some ideas. Let me share these with you. What resonated with you when we shared this inspiration around the creation of a speed and agility sprint for Shaw? What resonated with you from this research?
And I think just that visual of the pit crew and thinking about the moment in time that we were in where uh, COVID had happened and we were in a post-pandemic area and the world was already moving fast before then and it was accelerating at that point. And it's even moving faster today. But just that visual, just to remind us of, hey, the world is moving fast, and for an organization to compete and to win, to survive, you've got to be able to address these type challenges to stay competitive in the marketplace. From the P&G, really the learn pivot culture, our CEO at Shaw would always say that he wanted test and learn culture. And coming to you and what you proposed, coming from this inspiration, really resonated with that and fit well with how we were expected to pursue challenges at Shaw with testing and learning. And Steelcase, the SWAT team, the idea of having a diverse group of leaders come together all around a common cause and be focused on solving that problem was something that really stood out to me also.
Yeah, oh, it's great. I mean, one of the great things about our relationship with Shaw Industries, having worked with you guys for almost a decade, is that I feel that we collaborate well. So if you're sharing with me a problem, we'll go off and do our inspiration scan, and then coming back to you as executive sponsor for this speed and agility process, you are able to guide me, like here's what would really work in our culture, or here's what really resonates with me. And so I really appreciated when we were shaping this approach, your feedback along the way. And I really felt like it was something we built together with the guidance that you gave me from Shaw and the research that we were bringing to the table. So I think ultimately, if we look at the model of the speed and agility sprint, we really came up with several components that we put together for Shaw Industries. One was that when we would have a challenge or a project that needed to be, a solution needed to be mobilized, we would start with a very detailed charter and get very clear. You go back to that accountability that you were talking about, or prioritization, get really clear in the chartering of that project. Who's on the team? What's their role on the team? What would the timeline be for executing this project? What are the deliverables for every one of those milestones on the timeline? So we spent a good amount of time just getting the team together and chartering this speed and agility sprint capability with this first team that we worked with. And then we onboarded them. So we designed the project, onboarded them with the tools. We used a mural board for real-time collaboration. We looked at the skill sets and roles, and we came on board for the project. And then we had what we called the pit, just like in NASCAR, right? Prototype, iterate, test. And we had multiple cycles of that to come up with the right solution for the project that you gave us for Shaw Industries. We scheduled 2 pit cycles, prototype, iterate, and test, for this particular sprint that you and I worked on, the first prototype one. But that you could continue that kind of iterate, going back to Mr. Baucom's guidance around, test and learn. We could continue that to shape a solution and then connect. I think the important part that we had learned from you was that many times solutions would occur or happen out of the home office, but how do you get them connected into the business so that change actually happened? So we built out this capability of connecting the solution back in to the organization. So that was kind of the methodology that we came up with. Give us some perspective from your standpoint about, the first business challenge that we took into the sprint and how that worked.
Yeah, the framework was it was great work to really structure it in a way, given the inspiration and the challenges that we were facing, and really level setting, bringing the group together, making sure the leadership that was connected to the group was aware of what we were doing and why, and that it was a priority. That was one of those areas of focus for us. Is this is the most important thing for you as an associate during this period of time. And it wasn't 100% of someone's role, but when we were dedicated to this, we were expected to be focused in on this.
Mm.
The pit sessions were amazing because we were expected and held accountable to delivering, no different than the car coming into the pit stop. Is That was the sole focus, was to focus in on the challenge. And if you needed to pull others in, we forewarned people, and we held our word that we would have to pull others in to answer questions. And if they couldn't answer it, we asked them to point us to somebody else who could. And we didn't do the traditional send an email or set up a meeting. We got those answers real time, and we were aggressive about getting those answers. And I love, love, love the connect piece of it. I still remember how we closed out the session with the connection back to the enterprise, recognizing the associates who were part of it, but also making sure that everybody attached to them was aware of what they had done, what the outcomes were, and how it impacted the company.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it worked really well. And I think, the team that you recruited with all the diverse skill sets, you had folks coming in from the associate experience, from HR communications, you had legal involved, you had IT involved, you had training and development involved. So you brought a very diverse skill set of team members in to tackle the project. I think was the Pulse survey, right? The Pulse survey that we were looking at how to create that capability for Shaw Industries. So I think the project team was key. I remember many barriers that we came across that you as the executive sponsor were able to solve to keep us on a very rapid time frame with that speed and agility sprint. And I think just, having the team feel empowered to get it done. We had that regular cadence. I think we met every Friday.
Hmm.
And in that sprint process, there would be a set of responsibilities that they had to accomplish by the subsequent Friday. And then we would come in on Friday, we'd talk about that, iterate the prototype, and set forth the next set of actions to move it forward. I also remember that we really chartered the team to be creative and maybe let go of some historic norms. And I remember when we were looking at the software options and we got procurement, remember we added procurement to the team
Hmm.
because we were running into some challenges with getting buy-in from procurement for us to talk to software vendors before there was a formal process. And so we said, well, what can we do? If we don't have a formal procurement engagement established yet with a software vendor, what can we do? We said, well, we can have an informational session.
Hmm.
So we
That's right.
just skinny down our requirements at the beginning so that we could begin to assess different software applications and gave procurement time when we were just doing those info sessions to begin to go in and establish the procurement framework for us to have more detailed conversation. So I really appreciated the fact that we wouldn't take no for an answer. We just said, well, how can we go forward? We kept saying, well, how might we be able to solve this? And everybody put their best ideas forward.
Yeah, I love how you challenge us to, challenge the status quo and not let things stand in our way that had traditionally stood in our way. And just because we were focused on speed and agility, it was relevant to think and act in that way. I remember, Jenny, you challenging us to benchmark with other companies that had the solutions and hear their voices. And there were some limitations on who you could talk to from a procurement standpoint, but there was no limitations on talking to another non-competitive organization that had some of the platforms that we were considering. And we learned a lot. So it really equipped the team along the way with knowledge so that when we did get to the point of RFP and procurement, we could move faster through those processes.
So often in our work, we see in the literature how important having vision and having kind of this future scenario in mind that really draws us from our current state to our future state. And
Mm.
I really sense as the team got on board with imagining the capabilities and like you said, talking with other companies that had the capability, they were like, oh my gosh, why don't we have this now? They became so excited about the potential of the data and the information that they could get from this capability that I think speed just occurred, right? They were ready to go and get past all the barriers. Talk more about the Pulse survey, the first project that we used as methodology. If we go on to to kind of the outcomes slide, talk more about the impact. What did we achieve together?
Well, to the point of the importance of the pulse survey and where Shaw was at and where the world was at, our CHRO had declared that one of the most important things we could do as a company was make sure we hear the voice of our associates. And we had some other ways of getting that information, but we were outdated. So from a speed and agility standpoint, think about the time frame it was post-pandemic. The workforce turnover was bananas, and the Great Resignation. There was a lot of things moving. So the sooner we could get that information to flow, the better. And with a traditional approach, it would have taken us 6 or more months to get to a solution. And working with Bridge with this speed and agility process in 49 days, we had gotten to the point of being able to pilot a solution in a facility to get feedback and really learn how this tool could serve the enterprise if we fully invested into it. And time is money. And so the longer it takes for us to get to a solution to implement, the more it really costs us in not having that data. So really valued that we were able to accelerate that and get to 49 days in making something happen for the company versus 147 days.
And I would just say that in terms of the team achieving that, it really was a team effort. I mean, it really took your sponsorship and leadership on the executive side. It took the team members from Shaw who knew their domains, that were really committed to the success of the project. And then the Bridge team members that we brought on board that challenged the group and pushed us forward. So I think it just talks to the power of having a great team. And I felt like this project really succeeded with that. So that was very exciting. Talk about the lessons learned. I know that there were some that you shared earlier. If you go on to our next slide, talk a little bit about some of the lessons learned from this project that you guys are moving forward with at Shaw.
Well, and one aspect of the speed and agility sprint that was a key area of focus was change management. And we knew going into that visible and active sponsorship was a key component to understanding and having sustainable change. And we definitely felt that and learned that from this effort where we had leadership outside of the room, present and visible, both for this team and in the company, made a huge difference in things getting prioritized, adopted, implemented, and integrated as part of what we do. From a sprint team standpoint, in today's world, we are so busy and we are so booked, and technology is wonderful. But what comes along with that is you get you get the opportunity to do more stuff in less time. So prioritization becomes a challenge. So this process really helped us as a sprint team to understand how challenged we were with really prioritizing and focusing and finishing something. And Jeannie, we laugh about us showing up that first day kind of distracted because we wanted to get on your Wi-Fi so that we could, multitask while we were working on this speed and agility thing. And you did a great job of making it clear that if we're gonna behave like a pit crew, we've got to focus in on the car when it comes into the pit, and we were in the pit, and nothing else mattered from that standpoint.
I was going to say that was a great call out. I remember that now, that just there is this kind of mantra in our society today of multitasking. I don't know if it's enabled by all of our smart devices, but that was a big shift that we had to get people's focus. That if we have this very dedicated time together, let's make the most of it. That's the only way we're going to succeed. And That was a little bit of a painful shift at
Yeah.
the beginning.
It was a very important moment for us though, because it's one of those times that you don't really realize how you're showing up until you have that tension to pointing out, to call it out, to connect it to the outcomes. And we show up with the desire to be focused and prioritize and deliver outcomes. But if you don't have the matching behaviors, it's important to identify that. And this process created the right pressure, healthy tension, so that we could understand that better. I think from an org behavior standpoint, really one important thing, and this falls in line with sponsorship and leadership throughout the organization, it's important to stay connected to what's happening and to share with your teams and to really have an expectation for leaders to as they share with their teams to challenge their leaders to cascade information into the organization. And that creates awareness, buy-in, and it's really challenging when information doesn't cascade. But when it does, it creates really the glide path for speed and agility.
It does. And I really appreciated the fact that once we launched, we kind of, worked together to design the speed and agility sprint methodology that would work for Shaw. We executed it on this pulse survey project. And then one of the things that I thought was really great is at the end, we almost did kind of what you would think of in the medical field as a post-mortem. we didn't have death, we had success, right? But we did a post-success reflection,
Mhm.
and really tried to capture the lessons learned, and that you and your CHRO invited us in to share those lessons learned with the ACT, the leadership team that was accountable for accelerating change. We also did that sort of post-success with the team itself, the project sprint team. And then they talked about what tools they would just begin to start using every day at Shaw in terms of some of the tools and capabilities that we had put together for the methodology.
It is, and as we pointed out on the connect part, it's important to close those loops and feed that information back into the organization, and it's great to revisit that over and over, just to remind yourself of those things because you can fall back into the bad
Mhm.
habits that you had before.
Yeah. And I think when I reflect on the project and one of those components of success, the fact that together we ensured that the pilot part of the organization that was going to pilot this solution was involved from the very beginning on the sprint. They really owned it. Once the solution was completed by the team, they were ready to pilot in their division. And then they were the champions for the change. So I think oftentimes solutions get created and then the teams try to then go anchor it into the organization for some type of launch or some type of scaling. But by the fact that we had that part of the organization, we had that division engaged from the beginning, they were excited about taking the solution forward and beginning that pilot process. And so all of those wheels were happening simultaneously. We were building it. They're building out the pilot structure. As the solution's being iterated, they're adjusting their pilot plans. And so it worked out really, really well. It was a great project. It was so much fun to do together.
Absolutely, and that collaboration piece is huge because you do have to have shared ownership of success. Nobody, no one organization, no one person can drive success, speed, agility alone. And so having that partnership is a big part of it. And do really appreciate the integrated supply chain division for what they did to be that partner, visible, accountable, and taking the baton and saying,
Yeah.
we've got it from here to make it happen. And that was huge for
Yeah, I mean, it was great. The senior sponsorship from integrated supply chain solutions all the way down to the plant level. I mean, in the HR leader level, I mean, there was a real alignment there, and their support was really key, I think, during this whole design of the solution and the mobilization of the pilot. As we kind of wrap up today, I could keep talking to you about this forever because it was
you.
such a fun project, and I think such significant learning about how to enable speed and agility in an enterprise way. But from your perspective, what advice would you give for other organizations who are working to shift their culture to achieve higher speed and higher aspects of agility?
I really think leaders have to stay curious. Um, Organizations can have long runs of success, and one of my favorite quotes is a strength overused is a weakness. And sometimes those things that led us to success are not the things that will sustain success for us. But it really does require leaders to pause, to be curious, and to uh, reward the behavior of exploration and innovation in companies. So I would say make sure when you see people in your organization innovating that you support them, you invest in them, you thank them for what they're doing. Because sometimes you don't have good outcomes from innovation. That's just part of it. In fact, that's most of it when you're innovating. But you do have to recognize if without innovation, organizations will not survive. So it's an important skill.
Well said. Well said. I remember so much at the end of this project, there was such success. And you, as the senior sponsor for the project, we had a big celebration.
Hmm.
And you personally thanked every member of the sprint team in a very personal way, acknowledging their contributions. And I think often we forget when people do something extraordinary, which this team did, taking something that would have taken place in 6 months and achieved it in 49 days. That level of saying thank you, job well done, goes a long way. And that was a wonderful celebration event that you hosted for the group. That was fantastic.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun. It still brings a big smile to my face just to reflect on that.
Well, Torrance, it's always a pleasure to have you at Leaders in the Arena. You're always doing something extraordinary. You're always making big change happen. And so it's just great to have you here today. Thank you so much for being with us. And we'll look forward to having you again soon on another episode of Leaders in the Arena.
Thank you, Jen.